Okay. Let me start by saying I understand there are some people who are worried about what the film will portray, how it'll be, what it won't say. What you must understand is it is incredibly difficult to put 45 years of one incredible person's life into 2 hours, 15 minutes. So obviously you have to pick things that are important. Again, every person, you have a different idea of what is important and what isn't. Every individual is different. What you do get to see with this trailer is the extent of the early Queen that is covered, because you actually see in there was Smile. So it's going back that far. Whether you also know that you can record 15 hours of film, and what I might have thought was one of the most important scenes might not even be in the film. But I can tell you that I saw this year-old Freddie. I met him. I wasn't actually there for the filming of his scenes, but there was a Freddie from boarding school in India. So they have tried to give as much detail as possible. I was in London last year for five and a half months. For 2.5 months, I went round every day. I went round to the wig department, makeup, costumes, props, set dressing, set design, everything, answering questions. Because they want to make everything as real as is possible. You have to understand, as is possible. They asked if they could film inside Garden Lodge and were refused. So they had to find somewhere else. So I was there explaining what the Japanese room looked like, what the furniture was like, what the walls were covered in, what the dining room looked like, all of that sort of stuff, because they found a lot of this film is not filmed on a set. It's actually filmed on locations. So they had to try. They found a house that it's an absolutely amazing house. It was built around the same time as Garden Lodge. And it is also actually very famous in its own right in a totally, totally different field. But then they created scenes within this house to reflect Garden Lodge. I was talking to some friends this morning, and one of the things that brought a lump to my throat. Okay, let's go back a little bit. 2.5 months I spent telling people what happened. For example, Freddie always had a bag on his shoulder. The prop department asked me what was in it. So I went, a little hand mirror, a hairbrush, because he never knew what photographers would be if he got off a plane and everything. So he always was able to look presentable. Architectural Digest, a packet of Strepsils, cigarettes, his birthday book. Birthday book? What birthday book? It's a little book that he had everybody's birthday written in. Oh, okay. 3 days later, they brought me a shoulder bag, opened it, and they had everything that I had said inside the shoulder bag. Nobody will ever see that bag opened. But that is the sort of detail that they went into for this film. Okay, for the shooting part of the film, I was sitting in a little black tent on set. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chairs in this little, you know, these amazing director's chairs, you know, the high ones, you know, the folding canvas ones. So it was real Hollywood. And in front of me was the director, and there were 2 monitors which saw it, you know, which showed you what was being filmed. I had script supervisor next to me on this side, whose job was literally, because you know how films are made, you do the same shot 5 or 6 times. And her job, amongst many others, was to say, look, in the last take, when he said this phrase, he was looking in this direction. You know how all of us do it in films. You notice the continuity mistakes, where in one scene you look at someone, they're talking, they have a tie, and the shirt is buttoned up, and yet they shoot to someone else and go back to that person, and they've got an open neck shirt. She is to stop those sort of mistakes. The other side of me was Graham King, the producer, and executive producer was in the next chair. And that's what I spent 3 months doing, checking what was, as it was filmed. Then Bryan Singer would turn around and say, yeah, but would Freddie have been like that? Would he have said that? Would he have acted? Would he have been like that? And I would say, yeah, no, that's good. That's, yeah, you know, you can believe that. Or, well, no. I mean, Freddie's attitude would have been different. So then, shoot the scene again, trying it a different way. A film director is constrained by a script. So he has to produce the best he can from the script that he has. If he wants to change it, it's a huge deal. That's the way it is. I was put into a couple of very awkward positions, in that he sat me down, I remember one evening, and he said, look, we've got to shoot this scene tomorrow. What would Freddie have said? What was his behavior for this? And so, you know how it is. I mean, you all know there are things that I've got inside me that nobody will ever know about Freddie. There is just some things that, you know. And so I would say to him exactly what I've said to all of you about a situation, about how Freddie would have said this or he would have done this. And he just turned around and said, I've heard enough of this whitewash talk. What would Freddie have done? And I just, and I said, well, okay, he actually did this. He said this. He said, that's more like it. This is the Freddie I want. This is the Freddie that's got to be on the screen. Where was I? Oh, yes. Okay. What I was saying this morning that brought a lump. There was 2 or 3, 4 times I had to walk out of the tent during filming because it brought a lump to my throat. And almost a tear to my eye. But when Freddie was away, he said that it doesn't matter if anybody is in the house or not. Every evening, I want lights on in the house so that it feels like it's lived in, so that the house feels like a home, not just bricks and mortar. And I remember in the Japanese room, there was this amazing sort of wood frame with, you know, these paper globes, the big paper Japanese globes, like lampshades. And that was the lamp that I always used to switch on in the evenings in the Japanese room. In a scene in the film, it's filmed in the Japanese room. And I had said absolutely nothing about it. I mean, I told the set people what was in there about Japanese prints on the wall, you know, Japanese stuff in cabinets, and there was this lovely lamp, big lamp in a corner, and this, and the kimono stand, and this scene was shot in the evening. And it's just, I still see in the monitor, you have Freddie sitting on the piano stool, which there was a piano in the Japanese room. He was sitting there, just sort of tinkering on the keyboard. And in the background, that same Japanese light that I used to put on every evening was lit. And it just really struck me that, I mean, I had not said anything about that, but there it was in front of me. You have to remember, this film has not just been made for Queen fans, for Freddie fans. It is a multi-million-dollar budget film made for the world to introduce millions of other people into something you all know so much about. But it is a film. It is an entertainment. But I know that Bryan Singer has put and tried to make it as much like real life as possible. What you will find, you will all see the film, well, those of you that want to, and I would actually advise everybody to clear your mind a little bit and go and see the film. Because from what I have seen on this trailer, it will be amazing. But it's what you will find is, you know, so many of the facts of life of Queen. You will watch a scene and you might think, hang on, why are they in this area? Or as you saw in the trailer, you see Roger with a chicken on a wall. And you'll think, what's that got to do with Queen? But then you will think, hang on, Bohemian Rhapsody was at Rockfield Farm. So they have tried to recreate, to make people believe that it was recorded at Rockfield. Within the studio set, Brian May was involved to the degree where every piece of equipment that is seen in that room, in that studio, is in exactly the same position as it was when he was at Rockfield recording. That is the sort of detail. So while there might be things that are in the wrong place, you will find that almost all the facts that you know are included. They just have to be made. It's 2.5. You know, how often you watch a film, how often are you entertained for 2.5 hours? How often are you sitting there thinking, oh, this is going on a bit, let's go, I want a drink, I want popcorn. But with this film, because of what it is, because of the facts, because of the way they have been recreated, I won't put my life on the line and guarantee you will be entertained, but please give it the chance. It's very... as I say, from seeing this trailer and actually being there while all these scenes were recorded, it's a pleasure to actually watch this. That's enough from me. Now it's over to you.
Ik zie vooraan al Freddy van der Beek. Het handje.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Do you think that they were a bit liberal with the movie? Maybe with liberal with the movie, with like a bit dramatizing the story, because you can see Freddie crowd surfing. I don't think he ever did that, but and there's a fight with Roger, I believe.
Yeah.
And
but
the
again,
6-minute comment about the wife and Bohemian Rhapsody, is that a little bit extra added to the movie?
The thing is, as I just said, you have to accept that it is not a documentary. It is not a docudrama. This is an entertainment film based on fact. So, how many Queen fans are there worldwide? 20 million? There will be 150 million people going to see this film who think of rock stars crowd surfing, who you have to include everybody. The thing is, the crowd surfing was not planned. Rami just did it on the spur of the moment. He got into huge trouble with health and safety. He got into huge trouble with the stunt people, because none of it was planned, none of it was expected. And they've included it because it looks so good. No, it's not a fact. To my knowledge, he never did it. But it looks good. As I say, go to see this film, but do not expect a documentary. You all know that the band did fight. I don't know that they physically came to blows, but a physical blow can make up for half an hour of talking. And you don't have half an hour to talk in a film like this. You know? So everything is concertinaed. As I said, for 45 years of an amazing person's life, in 2 hours, you have to pick things and you have to move them around a bit. You all know that the film finishes on Live Aid. You all know Freddie did not receive his diagnosis of AIDS until 1987. But because they want nobody to think that things are being swept under the carpet, things are being cleaned, Freddie will know his diagnosis. But I don't think any one of you in here, and certainly not me, I don't need to see a film of Freddie dying. We all know he died. So let's leave that here and not have to watch it again and again and again.
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Hi. You've played an important part in Freddie's life. Do you also play a part in the movie as a character? And if so, which actor was cast to play your role?
No. Again, you've got to put 45 years into 2 hours. My name was mentioned, but that's as far as it went. I'm not that important. I don't see myself as that important. When you put into context the band, John Reed, Jim Beach, you know, Mary Austin, Jim Hutton, Paul Prenter, those people are a lot more important to the story. The way I see myself, and it still exists, when Freddie was alive, he's this massive image, and I would hide behind his left calf, and I would go out and do something and run back and hide, and people really wouldn't know I was there. Now, there's still this massive, great image, but you can sort of see through it. And I'm still hiding behind the left calf, but people see me there now. So I have become a little bit more in the public mind than I used to be. People say to me, thank you for keeping Freddie alive. Thank you for keeping the spirit of Freddie around. It's not me doing that, it's all of you. It's every single one of you who keep Freddie alive. All I can do is answer a question here and there which helps you and your image of Freddie.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How was the experience for you to see a professional actor like Rami Malek slowly turn into somebody you knew so well?
As I said, there were maybe 3-4 times during the shooting that I was there that I had to leave the tent. There's one scene that I can't really explain a lot about. That, again, it's the perfect example of the event happening, but not in the situation that you see it happening in the film. And what it did to me was it showed to me how much Rami had got into Freddie's character, because Rami delivered the lines that he had to deliver, but the way he did them brought this huge lump. I could have been watching Freddie sitting there and then standing up and saying what he had to say. Each of the actors, all of you must have, you have to be taken back by Gwilym, who plays Brian in the trailer. I mean, when I first met Gwilym Lee, he was Gwilym Lee. A week later, I saw him as Brian, dressed, wig, everything. And he started talking to me. And I could have sworn it was Brian. There was one, we were in a studio doing some shots, and Brian May turned up. And I mean, Brian came throughout, but this particular setting, there was the young Brian talking to the older Brian. And even Anita was there, and she had to have photographs with the young Brian. It was amazing. And I said to Brian May, I said to him, what does it feel like talking to your young self? Someone who knows as much about you as you were then, as you did. And he says, it's unbelievable. I mean, Gwilym, and also the other one was the Joe Mazzello, who is John Deacon. The very, very first time I saw him was in the director's office in Holborn. And he was sitting down on a couch. The sun was coming from behind him, so basically it was sort of silhouette. But you could sort of see features. And I was sitting in front of him and we were talking. And I could have sworn it was John sitting there. Because even the way he was slouched on the couch, and the hair, his hair was like John's hair, you know, when he had that frizzy sort of halo. And there was this light coming behind. And with his mouth, and as I say, just the way, I had to ask him that, am I talking to Joe or am I talking to John? Because it could have been Joe Mazzello practicing his John Deacon, but it just came across absolutely amazingly. They've actually picked some brilliant actors for this, including, because it has to be politically correct, Lucy is an actor as Mary. It was scary sometimes. It really was. To be actually seeing some of my past being reenacted. And being reenacted with such perfection. It was brilliant.
Hello, Peter. I have a question. Briefly, you stated that there was no filming in the garden lodge.
I can't...
Can you hear me?
I can sort of hear you.
Okay. There was no filming in the garden lodge, you stated?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you were involved in the strap sales, but did somebody ask you to press that issue at the garden lodge to be involved?
No, because you have to realize you're talking about a major film company, 20th Century Fox. They approached Mary and she refused.
Yeah, but you were not asked to the rescue.
Well, I was asked if there is any way that I thought that they might approach her, but if she's already said no, I could not see any way that it was going to happen.
Okay. Thank you. Was John involved in the music, in the film?
Not that I know, not to my knowledge. Brian and Roger both turned up. They were both around on set for the first shooting days at Live Aid, the Live Aid shooting days. And again, you have to think that watching that being filmed, there was the monitor. I looked in on the choreographer's monitor, and so she was seeing what was actually being recorded, and in a corner of the film, a corner of the screen, she had the original Live Aid. So she was able to correct each of the people on the stage so that they can be in exactly the same position for each of the shots. So even the cameraman had to be in the same place. What they actually got for that was that the people, the company that built the Live Aid stage in Wembley, built this set. So they used the original plans, everything. Being backstage at Wembley was backstage of that set. You walked down these stairs from the stage and you were in this backstage area and you were convinced that you were on the ground. And it wasn't until you walked out through past the set ends and through curtains that you saw that you were 10 feet off the ground. But everything, and the backstage, they've got the, like the concrete steps, where all the seats and everything normally were on the outside. And they've got all the rust marks coming down from pipes. They've got The thing is, to be honest, I don't think it would have been to any great advantage to have actually been in Garden Lodge, because it would be different now than it was when, you know, from the era they wanted to film. The only thing that would be the same would be the space. They would still have had to bring in a lot of set dressing, a lot of, you know, props, all of that sort of thing. And also to think from Mary's point of view that you would have all this lighting equipment, camera equipment, so much could get damaged. Of course, film people, they are incredibly aware. We were filming in buildings that were listed buildings. So you couldn't move that door, you couldn't scratch that paint, you couldn't do... And, you know, they know how to film in those sort of things. But I can sort of understand, because it's Mary's home as well. Does she really want to see it on the big screen?
Thank you. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
First question. I noticed some shade around your left wrist. What happened to Freddie's bracelet?
My wrists have grown bigger. So it sits at home.
Ah, okay.
No, what happened, really, exactly what happened was I was in the garden, I had the bracelet on, and I was bitten by, I don't know what, a horsefly. You know, the big flies, and it stung me, and it got huge. So I had to take the bracelet off. And then I actually noticed that my wrists are bigger than they used to be. So I'm going to have to find someone I can give it to that's got smaller wrists than me.
Second question regarding the movie. Have you seen the end result?
Not yet. Graham King, the producer, has sort of... he's promising that I will get to see it next month or the month after.
Okay.
But the thing is, even if I see that, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be the end result. Because so often with films, you know, they get special showings and they take audience reactions. While there will be at least 2 hours of film, we shot a lot more than that. So maybe they will take something from a different angle. Maybe they will take out another scene and take out one scene, put in another scene. You know, it's the same, even in other films. You will have a major actor goes and does a big scene, then they go to the cinema to watch it and it's been cut out. So it doesn't matter how big or small you are, if it doesn't fit with the film, they can cut it right to the last minute.
Okay. One more. You described, you know, this movie is made for the big audience. I'm also interested in which era the movie takes place, from which era it starts and where the...
Well, as I said at the beginning, I was there and I was introduced to a Freddie from St. Peter's School. And I know Kashmira has a scene, and of course Freddie's mother and father, but those were scenes, I think, set in England. And it covers from then. You saw also in the trailer, you see the Smile poster and everything, so it's covering the Smile days. You know, the end of Smile, beginning of Queen. And then goes through how the band got bigger and bigger and bigger from those days. They do concerts all over the world, and they've all been recreated. Again, Queen historians might notice that this lighting rig wouldn't have happened at this song. This song, they did this song later than, but the thing is, you have to get as much Queen music in as possible. And the story might not have fitted. For example, Fat Bottom Girls will be used earlier in the film than it was actually created. But not a lot happened in the era of Fat Bottom Girls, sort of thing. So you still will get it, but it will fit the film. And they will cover right the way through to 1985, to Live Aid. Live Aid is the climax of the film, but then they have brought the big scene from 1987 prior to Live Aid. So, as I said, Freddie's illness is dealt with.
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Did Mary actually have any input in who played her or any of the scenes?
No, nobody, actually. None of the real people had any put in who played them. All the actors were cast by 20th Century Fox. Even, I think the person who comes on stage next, after me, has actually got a small, minuscule part in the film. But even he had to be approved by 20th Century Fox. They're the ones... Actually, it's not even them that put up the money. They're just putting up the backing and the distribution. It was actually Graham King, whose project, whose baby this has been for, what, 9 or 10 years. Actually been on stage, the Live Aid stage, with the first take. We just hugged each other because I've been involved through Jim Beach with this project since the very, very beginning. 9, 10, even longer, more than that ago. Because this was originally thought about with Robert De Niro. And then Graham King took over and he wanted to do this film, and he has wanted to for 9, 10 years. So when that first take was done, we just looked at each other and we were nearly crying, and we just hugged each other, that it had actually, it now had a concrete start. But no, everybody, all the actors, and the thing is, there are some incredible actors involved. For me, Alan Leach is absolutely stunning. He's brilliant. He's a brilliant actor. I mean, people might know him. I can't even remember. He was in a big TV series, something down. I don't know, a big English TV series. And he was the hero in the end of it. And he's amazing in this. Aidan Gillen as John Reed is stunning. And the one who thinks 6 minutes is forever. I mean, if you think that... I mean, he was the one who asked to do this piece. And he had something to do with his script, which you will see later on. But if you think that one of his most famous roles was sitting in a car banging his head to Bohemian Rhapsody. There's a lot of in-humour that you will all understand. Maybe for me, personally, this is just me personally, there's not enough of Freddie laughing, just free laughing. But there is good bits of humour in there, all the way through. There's lovely little bits of humour going through the film, which I think is very, very important when you're doing something about Queen, because they enjoyed themselves. Freddie had a wonderful sense of humour, so. I answered the question in there, didn't I?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I get so carried away.
Peter, I just think there's one question more here before we have to stop, because it's time for the karaoke in a few moments. So.
Oh, yeah.
But Basje also wants to ask you a question.
Okay.
Hi, Phoebe. Nice seeing you again.
And you.
My question has an A, B, C section. The first A is, you said the film starts at the days of Smile. Was Tim Staffel also involved, approached?
I don't know that he was approached, but he is in the film.
Oh, great. Then some about the middle of the film.
The character is in the film. So.
Great. All Queen members and Freddie, they had relationships and marriages. Is any attention given to that?
Yes.
The private lives?
I mean, a lot of the relationships are in there.
Okay.
And the way, for example, how Brian introduced Freddie to Mary, you know, that all of that sort of stuff is covered.
And then Freddie's last relationship started way before Live Aid, and Live Aid is the highlight of the movie. It was Jim Hutton's first ever live show of Freddie. It was my 75th. Is any attention given to Jim Hutton?
Oh, yes. There's the most
okay.
amazing scene that was shot.
Oh, great.
About just literally before Freddie goes onto the stage, and it's Jim and Freddie. It's a wonderful scene. Absolutely wonderful. As I said, everything in Freddie's life is covered. His illness is covered. His sexuality is covered. Nothing. It's not a gutter press story. This is not a film meant to send shockwaves through everybody. This is a film about a real person. And that's what you have to take. It's not something from News of the World. It's not something from the Times. It's not anything like that. This is someone's story. And while it is Freddie's story, but you all know that more than half of Freddie's story was Queen. So that's why it covers everything. I mean, Queen are involved in so many of the scenes, but it covers Freddie's life within it.
Hi, Peter. Nice to see you again. I appreciate this may not be a question you'll be able to completely answer, but the film went through a couple of directors, and you mentioned Bryan Singer. Did you deal with any of the other directors, and did they bring any different styles, or
no?
were there any?
It's right. How do we do this? How do we say this? Okay, when you see the film, when you see it released, you will see it is a Bryan Singer film. Bryan Singer shot 85% of the film. He wanted, it was the American Thanksgiving holiday, and his mother was unwell. So he took that opportunity to go back to America to check on her. As he said, I don't know how much longer I've got with her. She's in her 80s. If she's not well, I'm going to see her. He requested time to spend with his family, but the studio was not happy. And when he didn't come back, they said, okay, don't come back. So 15% of the film was directed by Dexter Fletcher, who was one of the people thought about before Bryan Singer said yes. So it's something that Dexter has had in his mind, and he only shot, he did no reshoots at all of the stuff that Bryan had already done. He just shot literally, I think, about 15 days of what was left to film. But as I say, you will see on the film, it will say a Bryan Singer film. Bryan Singer came to me. He first approached me over the phone in February last year and said, I'm going to come and I want to see you. I want to talk with you. I want to sit and talk with you. I'll come next month. I'll be there next month. And then the next month, and because it was always being put back. Finally, on the 2nd of August, he said to me, I will be in Prague on the 4th of August. Can we have dinner? I said, well, yeah, I don't live in Prague, but yeah, okay. He says, I'll put you up in a hotel. We sit, we have dinner. I arrived, and I was in the second biggest suite in this hotel. He had the biggest. But you walked in, and there's this huge, long hallway. You had a kitchen off the first doorway. Then there was a little corridor to a dining room and a bathroom. Then you walked a little bit further, there was a big sitting room. Then you walked a bit further, there was a massive bedroom. This was what I was in for a night. We went out to dinner. We came back to the hotel, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, he said, I've not learnt enough, I haven't found out enough. Come back to London with me tomorrow. My plane will leave whenever you want it to. I said, all right. How long? 3-4 days maximum. So I had to get the first train back from Prague home, because I don't like driving to Prague anymore. Pack a suitcase for 4 days, get a train back to Prague. So his plane left. I mean, there was about 8 or 9 of us. The plane left at, I think, 3 in the afternoon. And I stayed in London until the 15th of December. That was from the 3 or 4 days. And every day he wanted to know more and more about Freddie, because he wanted to make sure that his thought, that his direction of Freddie was real. He wanted to make the Freddie as real as possible. Again, it is a film, but there were enough times for me to nearly have a tear in my eye watching some of these scenes. I really do say to all of you, whether you are Queen historians, whether you are the biggest Queen fan in the world, whatever, if you just like the music, anything, you also have to think that you could quite possibly be hearing some music that you have never heard before, because they have access to every single track that Queen ever recorded. So you might be hearing a different guitar track than is on a single or on an album, a different vocal track, a different things. And they have done so many different things to be able to make this interesting for everybody. But do not expect a documentary, do not expect a docudrama. Just expect to find out more about the life of Queen. And
ja, nou is wel genoeg hoor, dat geapplaudiseerd.
Thank you all. It's wonderful to be back here, seeing all my family's faces.
Okay.